All right, Bold Boulder, episode 134. And if you look out here, we're at the Clark County Museum on Boulder Highway. What's it called, Boulder Highway? Because it was the road from Las Vegas to Boulder City. Now it's kind of interesting. There's 4 buildings here at the Clark County Museum that are from Boulder City. And how did part of our neighborhood come here to be part of the Clark County Museum? So to answer that question, we have, there we go, hang on, Mark Hall-Patton. Hey, Mark, our frequent guest at Bold Boulder. And we're here at the restored Grand Canyon Airlines terminal here. Elevation 2450. That's Boulder City's elevation. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
The original sign. Well, it's a reproduction of
it's
the
a regional
sign.
Oh, yeah?
Right. That was what was on this building.
Yeah.
When it was down at the old Bullock Field there at Boulder City, at the original Boulder City Airport, that was originally Bullock Field, named for Noel Bullock. You know, so.
Old Noel Bullock. And what brought Noel out here?
Well, he was a real estate developer.
Uh-huh.
And he started the airport down there. Wasn't very successful with it, so
right.
he stopped early on.
Right.
Became, he was working with, Boulder City and all of that, and with the lake and everything. But, it was originally Bullock Field, named for him, and then he moved on and became Boulder City Airport. Uh-huh. And of course, we had Grand Canyon Airways there, and they needed a ticketing office, so they built this, which was not much more than a shack. It's not much of a building. Right. But this was the building.
Look at this building. It came here. I have a picture in our ad, but it is kind of a little building with a little porch here.
Yeah, it's only a 2-room building.
Right.
And now it looks like a very nice building. When it came here, it was not much more than a shack.
Right.
But this is the original building. It was down there. It was used as the ticketing office. You would come up here on the porch. You'd walk up to the window and
right
get your ticket. And then you'd wait here for the plane to come in. If you were going to get a lunch, you'd get a box lunch, and then you'd take the plane, take a trip down to the. You wouldn't go to the barn over there because there wasn't a barn.
Where'd you go there? There's another boulder over to the left there by the barn. You said there's another little shack there from Boulder City?
That little metal building down there, that was the weigh house that was down by the dam. That was when they were weighing everything that went down into the dam.
It's a little house.
Yeah. That was one of the buildings that was.
How did they weigh it? They had like a scale?
No, they had a scale out in front of it.
Oh, yeah.
Just like there's a scale in the depot itself.
Right. Is that train car from Boulder City? Okay,
No, that's a combination car. That actually came from the Henderson, what is now the Henderson Executive Airport. It was just being used as a storage shed there. So like the Union Pacific caboose and the boxcar on the other side, they're just example cars.
But that over there is the original Boulder City train station, right? Which was freight and
1931. Yep, that's the one. That's the one that was going to be bulldozed if it didn't get moved. And that was the first building that was moved onto this site for the Clark County Museum.
Right.
And it was offered to any nonprofit in Boulder City, but no nonprofit wanted it. So thankfully we took it and saved it and preserved it, so it's still in existence. Otherwise, it would have been knocked down and taken away a long time ago.
Well, even this building here, right? I mean, this building has actually been here longer at the Clark County Museum than it was a ticket office, right?
Oh, yeah. By very far, yeah. Because this was built in about 1934 or so, 35, something like that, and it was done being a ticketing office by the end of 38. So it was only a ticket office for a very short time, and it was moved up into town in 39 onto Arizona Street and turned into a house then, and then it became the home of the Henry and O.C. Bradley, the first black family that was allowed to live in Boulder City.
Right.
Because, of course, Boulder City was the first segregated community in southern Nevada.
Right.
And that was
no Asians, though. No, none of those Mongoloid.
No, but no blacks.
No black, definitely.
No blacks. And that was the main thing, because and basically you can work on the dam and all of that.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason that the Henry and O.C. Bradley were allowed to live in the house was because the house was owned by Grand Canyon Airlines. Grand Canyon Airlines was owned by Roxy Ruxtall, Glover E. Ruxtall, and when he sold the airline in order to invest more in the concessions that he had down at the lake, he had all the concessions at Lake Mead. He decided that he would have them live there because they worked for him. And even though Sims Ely said, no, they can't live here, he said, yes, they can. And he just moved them in. And he didn't care what Sims Ely said.
Right. And
if you had enough money, you could stand up to Sims Ely.
Right.
If you didn't, you couldn't.
Right.
And he could.
Well, let's show us the house then, Mark.
Okay.
What do you got here?
What we did when we restored everything is we actually completely restored the house. When we got this, there was nothing here. These walls weren't here. These ceilings, none of this. This was completely gutted.
Right.
So what you see now is, all of this is new. This is new construction in here. Like that entire wall on that side of the building was gone. That part of the building had been built into another building. So we had to rebuild all of that, had to rebuild the exterior walls, had to be redone, all of that. So this is the part where we talk about how the building was originally used. This is Roxy Ruxtall there.
Oh yeah,
you
Roxy,
can see the building when it was down at the airport down there.
Right. Yeah, and you can see the porch out there. Yeah. And look at that. It's a Ford TriStar, isn't it?
Trimotor.
Trimotor, yeah. Look at that.
Yep.
What about the, the props here, like the fans and everything? They have any
Those
significant?
are just time period pieces.
Just time period pieces?
Yeah. They're not from Grand Canyon Airlines.
Oh,
we don't have anything from.
What else we got here?
That is in terms of the office machinery and that we don't have anything that we know is from Grand Canyon Airlines.
So what kind of tours would they go on? I mean, what was this?
These were sightseeing tours. Grand Canyon Airlines flew you down to the Grand Canyon. It flew you over the dam. It was, this shows you, but it was actually a just like we have today. It was a sightseeing flight.
Do you know how much it costs?
Was, I believe, between $3.50 and $37.50, depending on how long the tour was and whether you got lunch and all of this.
Right.
But you could have a meal, and when you think about a sightseeing tour today, because you can take these same tours today, and you can have a very fancy one that can go all day and take a much longer route and. Actually sit down at the edge. Nowadays, I mean, if you do like a helicopter tour, you can sit down in the canyon. Even at this time, they had an airport or an airport right at the edge of the canyon. So you could sit down and actually go over and...
Here is the canyon,
and actually go to the edge of the canyon and look at it and have a meal there.
Right. Oh yeah. It says Boulder. Says the See Boulder Dam from the air, $3. Scenic Airlines. Yeah, it's kind of like the helicopter tours we got there for like the 15 up there, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
You could go up. You could, there was a lot you could do. Here's a nice shot of what the front.
Oh
looked
right.
like.
Yeah. Look at that. Yep. At the front, you sit in your office here, and this is what is this? Is that the?
Well, this would have been one of the people that worked, one of the pilots, and all of the flights that they made.
Right.
Because pilots have to log every flight that they are flying. Yeah. So this is Dick Rinaldi's.
Oh yeah, the different dignitaries here. Is there anybody particular of interest in these pictures here?
No, they're just group shots.
Okay. Well, see, you know, when you get those group shots at the end of every tour you take, get in it because you never know where you end up in a museum someday, right? Well, show us the rest of the house, Mark.
Okay, and then, like I say, it's just a 2-room house.
Right.
But
it's not quite a mansion.
No. But this room is where we talk about the Black experience, basically up to about World War II in Southern Nevada.
Right.
So now, because we have no idea of what the interior of the house looked like when the Bradleys were here, we just have a couple of things that kind of speak to what we know of Henry and O.C. Bradley. Henry was, among other things, a bartender at the Lake Mead Lodge.
Oh, is that him right there?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, right here. Yeah.
And that's him behind the bar.
Yeah.
He was known for creating a MacArthur cocktail.
MacArthur. Oh, it's like, I will return kind of thing. Huh. No, wait. Where was the Lake Mead Lodge? Is that the one that's
That was right down on the lake.
on the lake there by the campground there, right? It's kind of just a derelict right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he was a member of the Improved Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks.
The Improved Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elk.
Yeah.
They were improved in 1940? Okay.
No,
What was
that's
improved
just,
about
that's
that?
the date of that particular badge.
Oh, okay.
No, but he was. They were well known. They were well thought of in town.
Right.
They were reported on after they left, because they left town in '46. They went back over to Los Angeles, and he died in '47. But they were reported on that he had passed away in the local newspaper. So
right.
his passing was
a
even
significant-
reported back here.
Right.
So they were well thought of in the community. They were part of the community.
Okay, yeah. Well, in honor of MacArthur's commitment at the Wallapai Lodge, Henry Bradley created the MacArthur cocktail, a concoction of Cuban rums, a dash of egg white, a drink so popular it become a featured cocktail at the lodge. Interesting. Oh, there it is. That is a great cocktail shaker. Yeah, look at that.
And that's actually a reproduction.
Yeah.
But the sort of thing you would have seen at the time.
Right.
And then what we have here is
There he
it's
is.
a very long. Now that's Sims, yeah.
His old Sin Zilly.
Sort of looks like a cadaver warmed over, but
That's right. He was the guy. He was the guy that determined who went and who stayed, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
And this is just a narrative history of the Black experience in Southern Nevada.
Right. There were blacks working on the dam, right? But they had to live on the west side, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and very, very few. And it took the efforts of the Colored Citizens Labor Protective Association, which came into being to try to get blacks hired on the dam project. And they only hired, I think it was 42 out of over 5,000 workers. And it was, never a fair sort of hiring. When
This is the Ruxtell residence on Arizona Street.
Yeah, that was their home, not this home.
Oh, wasn't this? Oh, this is the home that they built.
This was behind it. This was back on the alley and back.
Okay. So this is the house in back. That's why I never saw it. But this house, that's no longer there, is it?
Oh, that one's there. Yeah.
Is it there?
That's the nice house. Yeah.
Oh, that's already there
Yeah.
at the corner there. Okay. Huh.
But you can, when you come in here, you can get an idea of what was going on in Southern Nevada.
Right. Right.
But this was part of the point about saving this building. The building itself is an important building. It was a building that was worth saving. It was a building that we wanted here.
Right.
We saved it. It took us many years to get it restored. We didn't have the money in the museum budget. We were able to, through the Clark County Museum Guild. So it wasn't the county that put up the money to restore this. It was our 501c3 volunteers group who raised $250,000, and then working with the county, they got permission to take over the restoration project. They hired the contractors and actually did the restoration using their own money, and then gave that restoration to the county for the people of Clark County.
That's a great model.
Yeah,
You know,
it's something that worked in this case. It worked very well.
right. Was there a certain passion that they had for this particular building? I noticed that there's a couple other buildings here that could use some restoration, but is there?
Well, this was the one that needed it. This was the one that hadn't been opened yet. This was the last structure on site that we could not open to the public.
Right.
This was the one that I asked them to
Oh,
look
okay.
at, and they said, yes, we will work on that. But it took them 7 years, I think, to raise that money.
Sure.
And to then turn around and give that back to the community.
Right. I think people don't appreciate how much time these kind of efforts take. It's not like just let's get passionate, save the building. It's going to be a one-time thing. You know, it's constantly, and you got to work on this. Not only have to save the building, but a model to preserve it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's not that somebody just walks up and says, "Here's a check."
Right.
Now, this is a small group of people that just said, yes, we agree that this is something that needs to be done.
Right.
And got out there and worked for many years to raise that money and then give that to the community.
Well, I think that's something that, we have other buildings in Boulder City that could be helped with that. I mean, it'd be nice
then the community's got to do that.
That's right.
People have to do that themselves. They can't just say, well, who's going to do that?
That's right. Let's save this.
And do it.
Right. Let's save it. Let's not move it. We're lucky that these buildings were saved here on the museum property, but there's lots of that weren't saved, right?
Yep.
For whatever reason.
And bear in mind something. It's not just the saving. It's not just the initial, because they've done this part of it.
Right.
But now, for the next 200 years, I always just use that number.
Who's going to turn on the lights?
Yeah, who's going to care for this year in and year out?
Right.
That's the taxpayers.
Right, right.
The taxpayers, every year, you and I, and every resident in Clark County is going to put money back into all of these buildings and make sure they're here for our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids to be able to come out here and learn from these buildings.
Right.
And that's the thing I always point out. That's why we don't take every building that's offered to us. I have to make sure that if I'm going to argue for accepting another building, I'd better have a darn good argument for why that's an important structure.
Right. But what was the total cost of the restoration of the building, Mark? I mean, one of our Dave Anderson is asking, what was the total cost of restoration?
Well, the restoration itself ran about $210,000, but that doesn't count the initial close to $100,000 that we had to spend just to abate the toxics that were in it, the lead-based paint, the asbestos, and that. And then that doesn't count the nearly $40,000 it cost just to move the building here.
Right.
So you add that onto it as well, you're pushing about, what would that be? $350,000 to get to this point. And that's just to this point. And it's going to be, that's just open the door.
Right, right. So these other buildings, let's say in Boulder City, you have to find not only use but find out how do you keep the doors open, how do you function, how does it work as a business plan or a model? Is the government's going to do it? Is it private?
How do you keep the lights on?
How do you keep the lights on? Right, these lights, they aren't free, right?
That's the hardest part.
We still got some, can we have a quick tour of the other buildings in Boulder City, just so that Boulder City residents know what's down here? Maybe just kind of walk.
That's fine. But remember, we are the Clark County Museum, and Boulder City is part of Clark County.
Oh, we are, yeah.
We don't count you guys as different. We
count
you as part of the county.
Yeah. We are part of Clark. We are Clark County.
Yeah.
We're on Boulder Highway, right?
Yeah, we count you as part of Clark County.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things here. So sure, let's take a look at the depot.
Okay. Yeah, how long's the depot been here?
Well,
that was the first.
Moved in late 1974. It was the first building that was moved out here, and I'm sure, hopefully, everybody in Boulder City knows where it was.
Right, which I don't think they do. Isn't that where the new railroad museum is going to be? Right in that area?
No, this was, if you make the left turn to go down to the dam,
Right.
this is where that's the corner where this was.
Right. Right at Buchanan.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
But this was the first one to move out here. And in fact, if you look at the site here, you notice that this is not parallel to all the other buildings here. And that's because there were no other buildings here and there were no buildings around here.
Ah.
And this is north-south.
Right.
All the other buildings aren't. They're oriented to Boulder Highway.
Right. Right.
This
Right.
is actually oriented north-south. So,
Just because? Is it part of the alignment?
no, that's,
Yeah.
that's the way they oriented it when they moved it out.
Yeah. Didn't have a master
Anything
plan.
else out here. So you come inside, and we've got. This is the scale.
Oh, the scale.
Yeah, and you see.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Does it work?
I believe it still will if it is hooked back up. This is one of the copper buses. I think this is the last one from Hoover Dam.
Wow.
One of the original ones.
Electric copper bus.
Rather a
Yeah.
large piece.
Well, you don't want to get shocked with that thing, right?
No.
Yeah.
I think all the other ones were melted down with the copper.
Yeah.
This is one of the electrical testing sets for Hoover Dam.
Huh. Kenatron testing set.
Yep. And then the luggage cart and the bench are actually from the old depot in Las Vegas,
Ah.
the original depot there. Now, originally, when this came out, this was the museum building.
Uh-huh.
So we had exhibits back here. Now we don't. This is the only spot that we can have meetings.
Ah. Oh, so this is that.
Pre-COVID.
Matter of fact, I saw that when you did the dedication, you had that in the building,
Yeah,
right?
and we do
Like a
meeting
little
back
auditorium right there?
Here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we can't now because
Right.
once we get past the virus,
That's right.
we'll
You're
be
gonna-
able to. And we can have.
This will be
about
part of our
50
history
people in
too.
there. Yeah.
What are we gonna have? We're gonna have masks, like a collection. I don't know.
Once we get past the virus.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is the office area.
Right.
You know?
Oh. And we have noises.
Oh, yes.
Spur line running from the main line south of Las Vegas to the new planned community of Boulder City.
With a teletype.
And an explanation. You can hear the Morse code going,
Uh-huh.
the telegrapher going there. And if you can figure out what's being typed, it's actually saying something.
That's
Morse
right.
code is saying something.
What is he saying? Do you know?
I'm not going to tell you.
You're not going to tell me. It's one of those. Is it dirty?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a message. Stuff.
It's a message.
Yep.
Okay.
But this is
Dennis
you would have
McBride was
walked
here?
in and you would have been on that side when this was actually in use.
Ah.
You would have walked in and gotten your tickets or whatever.
Oh,
you needed
right.
For the short time that they carried passengers to Boulder
Right.
City.
Right.
Passenger service didn't
Didn't click.
function for very long down
Right.
there. But it did have passenger service for a time down there.
Right.
You know, and so we have exhibits talking about the Union Pacific.
Right. Oh, right. Oh, the conductor, right? Nice
Their
uniforms.
Uniform and,
Yeah.
you know, their flatware and their dishes and glassware and all that.
Yeah, you probably didn't have much time to use the glassware between Boulder City and Las Vegas, though, right?
No. But it was part of the Union Pacific, so we also
Yeah.
talk about Union
Right.
Pacific generally.
Right.
You know.
Well, that's always that decision. I mean, as a historian and as a museum curator, you have to blend these things in and tell a coherent
you
story.
don't focus just on, well, this is just Boulder City. It isn't. This
Right.
is also about railroads as a part of Southern Nevada.
Right, right.
You know, so you have to talk about the Union Pacific as the reason that, you know, you
Yes,
have
sir.
Las Vegas here.
Right.
And, you know, and to some extent, the reason why the dam is where it's at, because the dam could have been in two other locations, one of which was based on where the Santa Fe was.
Ah,
But it was where it's at because that was the closest that you could run a railroad spur to.
Right.
And that ran off of the Union Pacific at Arden.
Ah.
Now, it could have been there, but there was one further down that it could have been if they'd run a spur off of the Santa Fe.
So was that yet? Few politics and
Yeah,
things
well,
like
it
that.
was, it also would have been a longer spur and would have cost a lot more money.
Okay. Right.
Often it's a question of money.
That's right. Well, and access, right? I mean, actually, that's why he was so far ahead of schedule. It's because he could load materials uphill. I mean, but location of Boulder City
Right.
and the railroad,
and
right?
the fact that he was running crews 24/7.
24/7.
And if you were trying to unionize, he just fired everybody.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
That. Yeah, they
there's
did
a
that.
lot to the project that is kind of interesting and probably
That's right.
wouldn't happen today.
Right.
So let's walk on down to Babcock and Wilcox.
Okay. Babcock and
And
Wilcox.
that's a good example because we just had to replaster the interior of the Babcock and Wilcox house just last week, the last couple of weeks.
Right.
Now, when was the last time you replastered your house?
Well, I did actually to do that, and especially because I live in the older
Yes.
historic house, and those things are like it's intense. It has wire and plaster, and this thing is heavy. And
And did you do the plastering yourself?
yeah, well, no, I hired Dave Duncan. Yeah, yeah,
And you think about the cost of hiring people to do that kind of specialized work. That's not the cheapest thing to do.
right.
So when you're doing that kind of thing, and you think about doing that
And who has the skills to
for
do
all
it
of these-
anymore?
Yeah.
Are there some resources for historic, like contractors that you know of, or is there like kind of a list going about contractors that are qualified?
Not that I'm aware of, not here. It's very much a matter of just trying to track down a person who can do that.
Right.
We are lucky we've got a couple of folks that are either part-timers or volunteers here who have some...
Well, this feels like a Boulder City street here. You know what I mean?
Well,
like an
it
ash
was
cherry.
also- Yeah, it was
Okay.
also,
Yeah.
downtown, Old Town Vegas.
Well, it's very much like this. Sidewalks and then grass
Yep.
and tree.
And that's the sort of thing that we're trying for here in order to get people to understand these as homes. But they are, obviously ones that have all been moved in, recreated, rebuilt, not recreated, just rebuilt
Right.
and renovated so that people can now go in and look at them and learn from them.
Right. The Babcock Wilson house. Now, this is a neat house. Now, these were all kind of clustered around where the new post office is.
Right.
Or for those of us who have been there for 30 years, the old post office. It's the only one we know.
Yep. And these were the managers and engineers' houses for Babcock and Wilcox. They were single-family residences.
Okay.
They were at the fourplexes that were for the workers.
Right.
But this one,
You say engineer.
if you had seen this 2 weeks ago, this room was completely pulled out from the walls. Everything was covered.
Oh, yeah.
All these walls and the ceiling and the alcove and that had to be completely replastered. So you can imagine having to redo a room like this.
Right.
Replaster, repaint, all of that. It's a lot of work.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we have to cut off that area because there's not enough space to
Oh, to mingle.
socially distance. But you can see back in there.
Right. Is there any special piece of memorabilia in here that has a story that?
Well,
You get
that's mainly back in the back room there. We pulled out some of it in here. This is all specifically related to the dam here.
Okay.
These are just period furnishings.
A brief history of the naming of Hoover Dam.
Yes.
Yeah, it takes at least 5 paragraphs, doesn't it, to tell that story?
Well, that's one of the things where if it hadn't been for Herbert Hoover, the dam wouldn't exist.
Right.
It was not named for him because he was president.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it was taken off because Roosevelt was kind of a jerk.
Oh, yeah.
And I always like to point that out.
Okay.
And Harold Ickes didn't have the right to change it. He didn't have the right to change it. But he changed it anyways.
Right.
And it became Boulder Dam for many years. And Hoover said on at least one occasion that the worst insult that ever happened to him in his life was the removal of his name from the dam.
Ah.
After all the things that were said about him,
Right.
that was the worst insult.
Yeah, because he's really got the river pack, which was the main thing, right?
He got the Colorado River Compact done. He was the one that rewrote the legislation that went through Congress that got it built. You know, it was Herbert Hoover as Secretary of Commerce, not as president.
Right.
He just happened to be president when it got built.
Well, Dave Anderson, who's been here before, he says dining room alcove is really nice on the Babcock house, which
There
is
you go.
like
Yep.
like in here, right?
That's it.
Okay, what do we got here? We got like pork chops, watermelon, rolls,
And I think
and
there's
Dad.
I think there's some beans back
Oh yeah,
there.
beans back there.
Yep.
They
We
look
always
good.
wanted to look like, you know, people are living in the house.
Right.
If you notice, there's clothes hanging up, you know, the clothes are being done back there in the alcove.
Oh right. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a washing machine back there, isn't it? Look at that. Yeah. Oh, hey, Jill. Jill's watching. Chamber of Commerce. Oh, look. And what's Mom doing? Oh, she's making like lemonade, right? Yeah, Mom's making lemonade back there. She's got lemons, some sugar. You betcha. I like the refrigerator. Look at that pie. Well, that's a beautiful stove. Guys, that got to be one of the first electric stoves. Look at those coils on that thing. That's a beautiful.
Yep. And you would have had that.
Yeah.
They're all of these are period specific. They're correct to the time period of the homes.
Right.
You know, they're not from this particular home because we don't know what was
Sure.
in this particular home. We know who was living there all the time, but we don't know what their interior was like. So
Right.
we have to go with what would have been a typical interior.
Right.
The only home that is out here that came with the original furnishings was the Beckley house.
Oh.
So, but yeah, this is the other one that came from Boulder City.
Right.
So Boulder City is well documented out here.
Well, Jill Rowland, Chamber of Commerce says, "Hey, Alan, thank you for the field trip." And right now, because we're filming a live show. Okay, everything's on your phone, right? Like, sorry, honey, I have to call you back. Some things
Tell
like
your wife hello for me as well. So
I will.
let you know.
I will do that. I will do that. Yeah, and you know, you and I have with the chapel. I mean, it's talking about my wife,
Yes.
county clerk. She's loves your chapel and
you
everything, and
go.
all these famous people have been married here.
Gotta pull the door to though.
Oh, okay.
Don't want to air condition the outside.
Now that's true. Now, were these houses originally air conditioned, Mark, or how would they do it?
No.
Yeah.
So the townsite house from Henderson does have the original type of swamp cooler on the top of it.
Right.
You know, but it's not hooked up. But it had. They were interesting because they had a hexagonal, a six-sided swamp cooler.
Huh.
And that was one of the things that were noteworthy about them, that they all had these six-sided swamp coolers.
Uh-huh.
So, well, I'll show you. We walk down to it. So when we took the house, we also looked for one of the original swamp coolers to go on top. And if you look at the top of the house,
All right.
it has one of the original ones on the top of it.
Okay.
So in every respect, as we have restored these
Uh-huh.
houses, business structures, whatever they happen to be, we try to do it as close as humanly possible to the original.
Right.
You know, to make sure that what you see when you come out here, even if you don't know you're actually seeing it,
Right.
you know, you're seeing what was originally there.
Well, hey, man. Thank you, Mark. It's another half hour of Bold Boulder, everybody. so come down to the county museum, see a piece of Boulder City history, plus see the hexagonal swamp cooler. If you've never seen one,
That's right.
they've got one here. So Boulder 134. Thanks, Mark. We'll see you all later.